In the waning days of the year 2024, aging action star Steven Seagal felt that his once glorious career in film was fading into oblivion. In fact, in spite of his innumerable accomplishments as a martial artist and global ambassador, Seagal found himself on the receiving end of many a cruel barb. He could but assume that the public needed a reminder of his virility and masculinity. Eager to return to his heyday as an action icon and ladies' man, Seagal at first considered making another album to highlight the manifold glories of his illustrious career. However, he soon found a more direct path back to the limelight. Seagal decided that the best way for him to restore his heroic image was to take on and conquer the Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge. The Butthole Challenge involved Bob carefully scrutinizing pictures of men's rectums for evidence of sodomy. Real men, of course, would show no signs of enlargement from penile penetration. Sissy men, on the other hand, would be all blowed out, if we may appropriate Bob's preferred terminology. Many in Hollywood, according to Bob, would be unable to answer the call due to their profligate living. Impressed by Bob's methodology, Mr. Seagal contacted him. The two men spoke for over an hour, finding that they had a great deal in common. Seagal was gratified by Bob's knowledge of his filmography, as the Texas-based YouTuber quoted from Into the Sun and a number of other straight-to-DVD films. Seagal offered to take the Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge, and Bob readily agreed to administer the exam. Seagal had to tame the wild horse of Bob's enthusiasm for the moment, however, as Seagal wanted the results to be broadcast before a larger audience than Bob's YouTube channel was likely to rate. Accordingly, Seagal paid Bob $10,000 to administer the exam and now began to search out a suitable forum for the Butthole Challenge. Seagal knew that he needed to recruit a person or institution with a good deal of reach and gravitas, so that the public would understand the significance of the Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge. Chris Hansen was busy, Jerry Springer was dead, and Seagal was beginning to lose hope. But then, he managed to snag the greatest television host in history, Dr. Phil McGraw. Dr. Phil was eager to tackle another unusual situation. While he did initially express some reservations about the medical legitimacy of the term blowed-out butthole, Dr. Phil eventually agreed to host a special broadcast where he would preside over the presentation of the results as Trumpster Bob examined Steven Seagal's anus for signs of entry. Less than a calendar month after Seagal and Bob spoke on the phone, Dr. Phil hosted a live stream of the Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge. Earlier that day, Bob had informed Seagal that he would not be able to attend the show in person. In the last few weeks, Bob had spent all of his money on Women of the Evening and Keystone Light. When Dr. Phil offered to pay his airfare, Bob informed the host that he was currently on the no-fly list due to a phone call that he had made that the TSA considered to be terroristic in nature. Accordingly, Phil arranged for a large monitor to stream Bob while he and Steven would talk on a sofa he procured from Big Lots. With Bob running late, Steven Seagal used this platform to talk about his Aikido background, time as a CIA field operative, and his film career. He pitched another Under Siege movie, promising Dr. Phil a part in the project. They were dangerously behind schedule and Seagal was dangerously close to getting on Phil's nerves when Bob finally logged on and announced that he was ready to share the results of the Butthole Challenge. An assistant now approached Dr. Phil, handing him a sealed envelope, directly from Trumpster Bob's domicile. Dramatically, Dr. Phil held up the envelope, brought it down closer to him and began to open it slowly.
Right here in my hand, ladies and gentlemen, are the results of the Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge, as taken by one Mr. Steven Seagal. The results are, Mr. Seagal, you have officially failed the Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge.
The audience gasped, with not a few laughs and snorts to be heard in the studio. First dumbfounded into silence, then trying out an uncomfortable smile, the action star settled on a soft glare. Looking up at the monitor where Bob's face was now visible, Seagal said,
"What is it that you think you're going to accomplish, Bob? Clearly, I am not homosexual. I don't do butt stuff. I'm a disciplined martial artist. I might indeed pound ass, but I don't get pounded in the ass. So what gives, Bob? What are you trying to pull here? I don't understand it, and I'm afraid I don't get the joke.
Dr. Phil now decided to step in and give some direction to the conversation, hoping to ensure that full justice was done to the science of the Butthole Challenge.
Well, this is rather unexpected. Trumpster Bob, could you perhaps explain for our audience of thousands tonight what it is that you look for when you're trying to determine whether someone's butthole is indeed blown out? What are the physical differences between a blown out butthole and a regular run-of-the-mill American butthole?
Trumpster Bob, looking less than healthy, paused for a second, took a long drag of his Keystone Light, and began to speak for the first time to a mainstream audience. He knew that the validity of the Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge was hanging in the balance.
Sure thing, Dr. Phil. You see, when a man is gay, his butthole is all stretched out. And that's what I see with Steven Seagal. If he were to take his pants down right now in front of you and them people in the audience, what you would see is the same thing I saw. That somebody has been taking him from behind and calling him Tinkerbell for many a year. This man is gay.
For Stephen, the trauma of this moment far exceeded what he felt when he received his first Golden Razzie. In a flash, he had an epiphany and realized that there was only one rational course of action, where he could clear his name and uphold his honor. Standing up as if to storm off, Seagal instead retrieved his concealed carry pistol from his shoulder holster and leveled it at Dr. Phil.
I've been a lawman and a sensei my entire adult life, and so I am well attuned to detecting bullshit. And I'm detecting a lot of bullshit here. Dr. Phil here is going to be the second to take the Butthole Challenge. We'll see what it has to say, won't we, Bob? And then I might have to pay a visit to your neck of the woods. So let's go ahead and get those pants off, Phil. And somebody get some pictures over to Bob immediately.
A deep, tense silence fell over the room. Whimpering, Dr. Phil submitted to the photo phase of the Butthole Challenge. The ding on Bob's phone was audible, so he opened it up and began to enlarge the image to study it more carefully.
There is a little bit of stretching here, but that's just a natural part of aging. We men take a lot of dumps over the course of our life, and that will leave a mark on your butthole. And so, Dr. Phil, I can tell you with 100% certainty that your butthole is not blowed out and that you are more of a man than Steven Seagal. I'm really disappointed in you, Steven. I always thought you was a real loyal American, but then I seen your butthole looking like the Grand Canyon down there, and I gotta tell you, your career is over. You are not a real man, you ain't tough, and nobody should ever respect you again.
Seagal felt deflated, lowering his gun halfway and averting his gaze. The well of his pride had finally run dry. Filled with a fire that he had not felt since the days of his callow youth, Dr. Phil suddenly charged Seagal and tackled him. The gun clattered away, and was secured by an audience member. The drama was over and a tragedy had been averted. Following the incident on the air, our three heroes each went forward along his own path. Steven Seagal, facing legal troubles in addition to the massive blow to his reputation, was able to make bail and find asylum in Russia. Seagal was hoping to find a surgical solution to his problems, but Moscow's leading proctologist, Dr. Bobby Jones, declared that his rectum was too far gone. The Trumpster Bob Butthole Challenge quickly gained esteem. Eventually figuring out that he could ask for bribes for a positive outcome, Bob raked in a lot of money. However, not realizing that his stream was still running, Bob let it slip that the process was corrupt and his newfound fame collapsed. Several 2028 presidential hopefuls, who had pledged to take the Butthole Challenge, quietly proceeded to not send Bobby Jones pictures of their anuses. Realizing that passing the Butthole Challenge and defeating Steven Seagal in hand-to-hand combat on the same day was the most fitting denouement to his career imaginable, Dr. Phil retired. He pledged to devote himself to charity. 3 weeks later, he accepted a massive contract from his old network to resume his primetime show, where he continues to dispense poor psychological analysis and personal advice to this very day.